stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we're going to have student and staff recognitions from the superintendent, and I'll have our two returning board members, Megan Silverthorne and Doug Benevento, join the superintendent to present the recognitions.
Welcome, everyone. I hope everybody can see when we get to their part of the program, so we'll try to work on that. The Board of Education is proud to recognize the achievement of one of our fantastic support staffers, a group of our innovative teachers and some extremely talented students. First, we would like to honor Dr. Peter Thompson, so would you please come forward, Dr. Thompson? Okay, Dr. Thompson, you gotta stay here. There's no escape. Dr. Thompson is the school psychologist at Rocky Heights Middle School and traumatic brain injury coordinator for the Douglas County School District. The Colorado Society of School Psychologists recently named Dr. Thompson the Colorado School Psychologist of the Year, and he received this award just a couple weeks ago. So congratulations to you. This is Dr. Thompson's 11th year with Douglas County School District. He holds various advanced degrees in educational psychology, and school neuropsychology. I'll ask you about that in a minute. He is a nationally certified school neuropsychologist. What makes him stand out, however, is the way he views his role as a school psychologist. It's much more than just a career. Over the past 9 years, Dr. Thompson and DCSD's Director of Health Services, Paulette Joswick, Paulette, are you here? No, not tonight. Okay. Have worked to build a cross-district network that identifies and treats students with brain injuries. Now they're working to ensure each and every school has its own team focused on this work, consisting of school nurses, psychologists, social workers, counselors, and speech-language pathologists. The team has become an example for the districts throughout the state, which are just beginning to address the danger of concussions in sports and elsewhere, like on the playground. Dr. Thompson will compete for the National School Psychologist of the Year Award, which will be given by the National Association of School Psychologists, NASP, during their annual conference in Washington, D.C. in February. So congratulations again to you. So first of all, your PhD is in?
School neuropsychology.
So what does that mean?
It's the study of the brain and behavior relationships.
Okay, and so how did you get interested in brain injury and trauma?
There's actually, I could talk for a long time on this.
That's what I told him. I told him I'd hold the mic because he said he would never give it back.
There's actually a grave need. It's kind of like a silent epidemic, and I'm just grateful that we have a brain injury team in the district and we can address the need.
Absolutely. After just speaking with you for a few minutes, I crossed a lot of sports off my daughter's future list. So be aware, talking with Dr. Thompson will change your perspective on things. And so you'll find out in February if you are the national winner.
Yes.
And is there anything else you wanted to share with everyone tonight? We have a lot of fans here.
Just a couple things. I said in an interview that Douglas County is not just where I work, it's where I make my life. And I'm very proud, I've always been proud to work in Douglas County. And actually to represent Douglas County, I do travel around the state, do a lot of presentations on behalf of Douglas County. And during my acceptance speech in Vail, they awarded me the national, the state. So there. I said that, if I can see further, it's because I stand on the shoulder of giants. It's a famous quote. There are some people that I have to recognize because I would not be holding this to receive the award. So Dr. Fagan is definitely one of them, because without the support of the directors and the higher-ups, wouldn't be free to do what I need to do. Same thing with Damon Minnie, Mike Boyce, my principal, Paul Coswick, and Derek Cheney. So thank you very much for all the people who supported me and allowed me to do the things that I need to do to protect children.
Mike Lloyd is actually back there in the back. He's hiding, but if you wave, Mike, so we can all see you. He was here tonight. With his daughter, you can see, supporting Dr. Thompson because he's so proud. There's put her down, Mike. You're in trouble. So, thank you so much. We are so proud to have you in our school district, and everything you do for students is, you are on the cutting edge of something very important. So thank you very much. Next, I would like to bring Kim Kerr forward, if you wouldn't mind coming forward. Oh, there she is, right in the front row. You made it easy. Okay, Kim is an 8th grade math teacher at Cimarron Middle School, and Raytheon named Kim a 2013 Math Hero. As part of its Math Moves You program, Raytheon honors effective math teachers, math coaches, or math event coordinators who not only go out of their way to help students learn math, but find ways to instill a love for the subject. Wow. Okay, the company looks for those math instructors that are dedicated to improving math education and student participation. Before becoming a math teacher, Kerr was an aeronautical engineer for the Air Force. A small little job. She often uses real-world examples from her own life to ensure students understand the real-world applications to math problems they're using. Kerr is among nearly 30 math heroes who will be honored this year, primarily in the 8 states where Raytheon is located, including Colorado. She'll receive a $2,500 grant, and Cimarron Middle School will receive a matching grant in the same amount. The math heroes have the opportunity to direct how the funds are spent. Kerr and her team are thinking about using it to enhance their classrooms with iPads, clickers, and other tech tools to enhance the use of the smartboard that is already installed. Congratulations to you, Kim. She ran away before I got to ask her any questions. That's okay. Do you want to talk about it?
No, but Raytheon's a great company. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I also appreciate the opportunity of my team, which I would not be here without.
So she appreciates Raytheon and her team, with whom she would not be here without. Well, congratulations to you, and thank you for using those real-world examples in math. As a former math student, I would really appreciate that. So, congratulations to you. Okay, next we would like to honor 4 of our students that were recently honored by the National Scholastic Press Association for the Picture of the Year contest. So, would the following students please come forward? Alexandra Merrill. Are you here, Alexandra? There she is. Brina Sandoval. Are you here? Yay! Connor Chase. And Emily James. Okay, here we go. In the middle school division, there are 10 finalists nationally. 4 of them are from Douglas County School District, including 1 from Mesa Middle School and another from Rocky Heights, and 2 from Sierra Middle School. This is the 6th consecutive year that Sierra Middle School has had at least 1 finalist, and the 4th year that Sierra has had 2 finalists. We've heard about this amazing yearbook program there before. So, first of all, I just want to ask you guys about the Picture of the Year contest. So what's that about?
The Picture of the Year contest is just about they find the best picture, and the advisor selects the best picture that's taken at the school, and then he selects it to be sent in for the contest, and then they just find the best picture.
And what was your picture?
My picture was of a basketball contest, yeah. Or it wasn't a contest, it was a project from art.
How about your picture? Okay, and?
Just cross-country photo.
Cross-country. You guys make it sound like, yeah, just a picture I took. Really recognize. And Emily, right? You have something extra there that you're holding. Yeah, okay, so we'll talk about that now. So the final place awards were announced in Boston a few days ago. So did you go to Boston? How'd you like Boston?
It was amazing.
Okay. Emily won the 2013 Picture of the Year award, thereby taking first place among all the middle schoolers. Right? So, wow. Okay, so you probably can't see. This is your picture, right?
Yeah.
So you probably can't picture, but this is her award, so you'll have to show them when you walk back or something. And so what was it like winning the big award?
It was speechless, I guess. It was really amazing because everybody's sitting there and then they call up your name and they're like, oh, you got first place in this huge award nationally. So
Wow, so is this an interest of yours for the long run or just something you enjoy doing now?
I would love to become a photographer sometime, but it's a hobby now. So.
Yeah. You have time to decide. Well, congratulations to all of you guys. We are very proud of you and all that you represent in our school district, so thank you very much. Okay, finally, we would like to honor all of the teachers in Douglas County who are part of our World Class Education Pilot Program. So with the following teachers, if you're here, please come forward. Sonia Herring from Cimarron Middle School. Oh, sorry, it says Cimarron on my list, but Crystal, come on up. Katrina Windsor, Legend High School. Mary Lisa Blevins Harper, Mammoth Heights. Virginia Stanford, Mammoth Heights. Christina Coney, Rock Canyon. Craig Carlson, Rock Canyon. Mama Corbin, Rock Canyon. Nancy Mann, Sage Canyon Elementary. Cheryl Rose, Sage Canyon. Kristen Wright, Wildcat Mountain Elementary. Jennifer Amos, Mesa Middle School. Stephanie Kawamura, Pine Lane. Stephanie Crow, Sage Canyon. And Shauna Stafford, Sand Creek. So the World Class Education Program will be open to every teacher. We had a very special group of highly effective teachers who took part in the program's inaugural year and provided us with great feedback that has made the program a lot better. This group of teachers have been instrumental in helping us refine the world-class targets. Throughout the process, this team took feedback from the pilot participants and made improvements. For instance, after feedback from teachers, they've worked to ensure that any teacher who is rated highly effective in an area that is eligible for a world-class target will be notified of the opportunity. Thank you for everything you have done for all of the teachers in Douglas County School District and teachers everywhere. Now we'd like to take it, well first let's clap for that. So thank you so much. Okay, now we'd like to celebrate the teachers that reached each of the targets by having them step up as I read out the targets. So we made available several targets and different teachers attempted to meet those targets and won and earned them. So backward planning. So if you earned the target on backward planning, please step forward. Okay, 21st century skills. Professional growth and development. Restorative practices. Student engagement. And leadership. Congratulations to everyone. We are so proud to have this many amazing, talented pioneer teachers in our school district who took on this very rigorous challenge and exceeded our expectations. One more time, we want to, and also we want to take one more second to commend Stephanie Crow. So Stephanie, step forward a little bit there. Stephanie reached all of the targets offered in the pilot this year. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much for everything you do every day for our students and for participating in this. You're truly leaders in our district. Thank you. Principals who are here tonight supporting teachers and supporting them through this process. I know that it takes a whole entire team to make this happen, so thank you to all of you also. All right, I believe that concludes our awards for this evening, so thank you very much for everybody for coming. We really appreciate it.
Congratulations to everyone on their recognitions. This evening is actually a very special anniversary in the history of our country. Today is the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. And there was a fascinating article in the Denver Post on Sunday. If folks want to go back and look at that, but there were actually five original copies of the Gettysburg Address that Abraham Lincoln wrote out by hand. And there are actually slight variations from one copy to the other one. But this article is about the fifth copy. There are actually two copies in the Library of Congress, one at the White House and one at Cornell University. But the fifth copy was held in a private collection, and it was written by President Lincoln for Everett Everett, one of the speakers that day. And it had been in a private collection, but there was a campaign in the state of Illinois by school children to raise the money. At that time, it was in the 1940s. It cost $60,000 to purchase that copy. And the school children were each asked to raise a nickel. And they raised the money, nearly all the money that was needed to purchase that, and then some private donors. Marshall Field department store owner matched it, and they purchased that, and it's now in the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library in Springfield, Missouri. So I thought it would be fitting, since school children were involved in that process, to have the Gettysburg Address read this evening by some students from Ben Franklin Academy. And then we have a resolution from Director Richardson commemorating the occasion. And I want to thank the students for being willing to come this evening and remind us of the amazing importance of the words that were spoken 150 years ago today.
407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this.
But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced.
It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you. You ladies want to introduce yourselves? Why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'm Aubrey Gergen, and I'm Rebecca.
And what grade are you in?
8th grade.
Great. Well, very nice job. Thank you for being willing to come this evening. All right, Director Richardson.
Nice job. This is a resolution in commemoration of the sesquicentennial of President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Whereas precisely 150 years ago today, on November 19, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln delivered his oration on the occasion of the dedication and consecration of the National Cemetery at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And whereas President Lincoln was drawn to that sacred ground because in a 3-day battle that took place the previous summer, over 50,000 casualties were suffered by the Union and Confederate armies that struggled there, making it the bloodiest battle in the American Civil War. And whereas in his speech that lasted only about 2 minutes, President Lincoln reminded the American people about the genesis of their freedom and their liberty, pointed the American people to the tremendous self-sacrifice that had taken place in the battlefield before them to advance that freedom and liberty, and challenged the American people to, quote, the unfinished work, end quote, that lay ahead in the cause of freedom and liberty. And whereas the nearly 65,000 students of the Douglas County School District are the direct and proximate beneficiaries of the noble sacrifices of the generations that came before them, including the soldiers who died on the Gettysburg battlefield, to preserve and enhance the exceptional American project in human dignity and human rights. And whereas it is the considered opinion and deliberate view of the Douglas County Board of Education that, in the words of President Lincoln, our students should never forget the sacrifices that make their freedom possible, and that they consequently must first learn about the scope and depth of those sacrifices as part of an education that prepares them for future global leadership. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Douglas County Board of Education that, 1, the board marks and remembers the stirring words of President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address on the solemn occasion of its sesquicentennial. 2, the board urges the stakeholders of the Douglas County School District, teachers, staff, students, parents, and taxpayers to pause in remembrance of the crucial importance of the Gettysburg Address as a vivid and eloquent expression of both the noble genesis and the bright future of the American project. And 3, the board emphatically joins with President Lincoln in being, quote, highly resolved that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Signed, John Carson, President of the Board.
All right, we'll go ahead and take a vote on that. Benevento? Carson, aye. Larson? Mendoza? Richardson?
Aye.
Silverthorne? Williams?
Aye.
All right. Resolution is adopted. Thanks for putting that together and reminding us of this occasion. I neglected at the beginning of the meeting to take the roll, so let me do that now. Benevento? Here. Carson here. Larson? Here. Mendoza? She has an excused absence. And Richardson?
Here.
Silverthorne? And Williams?
Here.
Thank you. All right, now we have our superintendent reports. And we have a couple of presentations that Dr. Fagan will introduce.
Thank you. We're going to start this evening with Chief Financial Officer Bonnie Betts, and I don't know if she has a team with her or not, but she'll introduce those folks. And she is going to present the first quarter financial report. So just a quick reminder that school district financials have an interesting reporting calendar in that we have a fiscal year instead of a calendar year. And so that begins on July 1st and runs through June 30th. So thus the first quarter financial report. So Bonnie Betts.
Good evening. I'm very happy to delegate the giving of this presentation to my new budget director, Mr. Scott Smith. He will be giving you the highlights of the first quarter financial report And then just a reminder, next month you will be seeing the final financial results from last year, fiscal year 12-13. This is fiscal year 13-14. Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Bonnie. My name is Scott Smith. I'm the budget director here at Douglas County School District. As Bonnie mentioned, this is our first quarter financial report, so as of September 30th. This is just a high-level summary report. We should have the more detailed financials in your packet. If you have any questions on those or the presentation, please stop me whenever that question arises. The first thing I want to talk about was our increase in enrollment and funded pupil count from fiscal year 12-13 to 13-14. So our 13-14 numbers aren't finalized yet. They're final from our district perspective. The CDE has not accepted them yet, but we believe that these will be our final numbers. Our enrollment has gone up about 1,500 students, and our funded pupil count about 1,400. The reason that there's a difference between those two numbers is that our enrollment is all the students that we educate, whereas our funded pupil count are those that are funded by the state. So the state only provides us 0.58 funding for kindergarten, and only provides us funding for our special ed preschool at a 0.5. So that's the reason that there's about 150 difference between those two numbers. As we look at our general fund through the first 3 months, we've received about $7 million more in revenue than we did last year at this point. We would expect this. Our per pupil revenue went up about $160 last year, as well as the 1,400 student increase. So this is right in line with what our budget projections believe we should have received so far. Similarly, our expenses are up about $7 million this year. There's a breakdown of 13-14 expenses and 12-13. A couple things to point out. You can see that our salaries have gone up from last year. That's due to the pay increases that we've talked about before in these meetings. Our benefit costs have also gone up as well as we absorb the para increase from the year before. You can also notice that our operating expenditures are up about $3 million so far this year. There are really two main drivers of that. The first is just the timing of expenditures. We had some software licenses that we renewed in the first quarter this year that we hadn't renewed yet last year. So as you go forward, you will see that gap start to close. It's just simply the timing of when the expenditure happened. And the other one is we've experienced some turnover in our IT department. We're working hard to fill those positions, but in the meantime, we've hired some contractors because there's some critical work that needs to get done. So that's why you're seeing the expenditures in the operating section versus the salaries and benefits right now. Right now, at September 30th, we believe that we've adopted a good budget for the year. So in your packet, you'll see that we're projecting our actual expenditures for the year to be equal to our budget. We're currently watching more actuals come in, doing some forecasting. If we believe that there's a need for a budget revision, we will present that to this board in January. Moving away from our general fund, Fund 10, to some of our capital funds, a couple key points that I wanted to point out. Our capital projects fund, we've already spent half of our budget for the first 3 months of the year. Similar story in our COP building fund. We spent 80% of that budget throughout the year. Neither of these budgets have a recurring transfer from the general fund, so they're just drawing down on fund balance in those funds to fund those operations. And as a reminder, we mentioned this at the end of last year, but our bond building funds were completely spent during fiscal year 12-13. I'll pause for a second here. This is the presentation I have on the first quarter. I have a couple slides to set the stage for budget development of 14-15. I know it seems early, but we are going forward there. So any questions on the slides so far?
On slide 3, so on the operating uptick a little bit there, 2%, you said there were two essential components of that. One was timing, which is understandable. The other, turnover in IT. First of all, what's the magnitude of those two elements in the 18%?
They're both about $1 million out of the total 14.
Okay. So that's the delta, roughly?
Yes. There's some other stuff. Our schools have spent some more on textbooks so far this year than they had last year. And then kind of there's some software at the schools as well that we bought this year that we hadn't spent at this point last year as well.
And then on the IT front, is that because we're outsourcing the...
We are right now. We're using contractors. We're working to fill our positions internally, but because
right.
we have critical work, we have our contractors in.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
All right, so as we look forward to 14-15, the first thing I want to talk about was the revenue side of our budget. So at the beginning of this month, the governor released his budget request, and he is proposing that we only increase K-12 funding by pupil count growth and inflation. So statewide, that's about $260 million, or $223 per pupil. Because of the way the school finance works, Douglas County would be more about $213 per pupil. So to put that in the sense of our entire district, if we had flat enrollment, that's worth about $13 million extra over what we have now. If we grew another 1,500 students, we get about $10 million on top of that. So that's kind of the range of revenue that we're looking at. One other thing the governor noted in his budget was that he is not projecting nor has requested that the negative factor be decreased in the foreseeable future on a dollar basis. So as the total program goes, the negative factor will go down on a percentage basis, but he's holding it statewide at $1 billion, which is about $75 million here in Douglas County. As we look at the other side of the budget, our expenses, we're starting to work closely with our departments to try to figure out where we might have cost increases. Obviously, a big driver of that would be if we had students, more students coming into the district, so we're working with our planning department to get an idea of what we think our enrollment growth will be. We'll have some benefit cost increases, and we've also started to talk to our operations team about potential increases in utilities, transportation, capital projects, those types of expenditures. We also believe that we'll have some increased student assessment costs. We are looking at potentially increasing SBB, maybe making some one-time funds ongoing, looking at salary increases, everything like that. This is just the discussion that we've begun to have. Obviously, our budget for 14-15 will be driven by the priorities set by this board, but we just wanted to lay out the types of things that we're starting to think about at this point. And that is the presentation I have. As Bonnie mentioned, she'll be back next month to present the CAFRA and the audit. I will not be doing that. So, happy to take any other questions that you have. All right, thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Chris Lawson, who is working with, he's sort of the bridge between education world and the IT world, and has worked together with us on our project called Inspired Innovation. You probably recall from previous presentations that we worked hard to find the tools that our teachers and our leaders need to successfully implement things like Senate Bill 191 and other changes in education. After trying to find those tools for a couple of years, our IT department has taken on the task of creating the tools based on what we hear from our teachers and our leaders that they need to be successful and efficient in completing their work. So we presented phase 1, which was delivered on time in July, which was the unit builder tool, and you might remember that we had a couple teachers here who shared their experience with that. And tonight we are excited to share with you the phase 2 that has now been launched again on time, and which is a great thing in this project. October 15th was the deadline, and it was ready to go, and now it is out in the system. So with that, I'd like to introduce Chris Lawson, and looks like he brought guests too, and Kelly Smith, and they're going to take you through the new phase and the new improvements to the tool that is currently available to any staff who are interested in the district. Again, this is not required, although the summited piece is required in here, but the use of it on a daily basis is completely optional. So, Chris.
Yeah, so we were charged with really building a system that's in between really two people. Those practitioners that work with our kids every day and the folks that evaluate them. So in sort of picking up that challenge, we sort of used as the arbiter of our work the site rubrics that have been developed. There was 22 total currently accounted for in our system. The 22 practitioner-specific rubrics that are sort of the arbiter of that work with our students in the district. So I brought Kelly Smith, who's our principal at Flagstone, to kind of be able to provide you with some insight from a principal's perspective. And so the way that I'd like to kind of walk through this is to show you the functionality that's in the tool and kind of what we would expect our teachers to do in terms of interacting with this tool. So I'm going to show you.
I've never had a tool that's been this easy to use. And when he first came and said, we have this new thing that's going to be awesome for use with observations, I thought, really? And he was absolutely right. So the next day I had a staff meeting, and I told the teachers, I don't want you to do anything with this yet, but I would like you just to log in, assign your rubric so I can just play with it. And then I went into a meeting with a group of teachers, and there were some parents there, and I noticed that in the meeting I thought, wow, this lead teacher is killing it in this meeting. She's doing such a great job, and I'd love to be able to capture that. And I thought, well, I'm going to try this new piece of software. And I'm telling you, it was so easy. I opened it up, clicked the teacher's name, clicked the elements that I wanted to show that were highly effective for her, wrote up my little summary, submitted it, and I can't tell you, she was thrilled. And then she got into it, the word started to spread amongst my staff, and now I'm getting emails every day. I loaded a piece of evidence, can you come and rate that for me? So that small piece really changed the dynamic of how I'm pulling evidence for teachers, and we're becoming I have a lot of ownership on what they can put into here, and I found that it's been so easy. The feedback that we've given Chris and his team, they get back to you within sometimes an hour. I think there was one I shot off an email right after I put in that first piece of evidence, and I said, this is awesome, more people have to use this, and he got back to me right within the next 30 seconds, I think. So any input that the teachers have on it or that we have on it has been taken into consideration. I just had an hour-and-a-half meeting with them earlier and said, have you thought of, yes, great idea, and there's already phases of it coming out for us. So in that initial piece, I loved it, and we've gone even further, and we can talk about that more.
Yeah. So now that I'm logged into, and the reason why I was having a little bit of struggle is I want to be able to show you the view from a principal's perspective, and I want to be able to show you the view from, in my case, I'm going to be acting as the teacher of the school. So here we're looking at my dashboard. So this was another thing that we rolled out on the 15th of October, and the intent of this over time would be that we would house all of the pieces of Inspire Innovation sort of in one central place. So in July we talked about that Get Builder tool that we rolled out and developed in collaboration with our administrators and with our teachers. And so that's represented on our dashboard as well. The second tool that we released is that site tool. So as Kelly mentioned, when a teacher comes in and first engages with this tool, they're asked to set a rubric. So we've got, as I said, 22 practitioner-specific rubrics that they can select from. So once they've identified which rubric it is that they're going to be evaluated on this year, they sort of own that part, and part of owning that is understanding what they're being evaluated on. So you can see here in this sort of imaginary scenario, I've set the teacher librarian rubric, and I'm able to go in, having selected that, I'm able to go in to a self-evaluation process that would happen likely at the beginning of the year, at the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. And so, as you can see, I can step through standards 1 through 5, see the standards, see the elements that are part of that standard, and I can see the quality metrics. As I hover over the top of a quality metric, it will give me the data from that rubric and tell me what does it look like when I'm highly effective on that given element. So, having gone through this exercise, again, sort of fictitiously and earlier, I'm sort of evaluating my performance at the outset of the year. Having done that work, I identified that 2.3 is an area of growth for me. So I have an opportunity within this tool to capture that goal and sort of to frame my work with teachers or with students over the rest of the year. So in doing that, we can see the text of my goal. We can also see the related standards and elements for that goal. Okay, so we start to tie, having picked that teacher librarian rubric, everything in this tool now starts to align to the standards and elements that matter to that teacher specifically. You'd also be able to see if we had tied evidence into that goal, you'd also be able to see that evidence represented as well. So what Kelly was kind of talking about in terms of that sort of back and forth between a teacher and his or her evaluator is an opportunity when I go in to create evidence as a teacher. I've got a couple of opportunities. I can put in a piece of, so I can select from a formal observation cycle. So I have a component of pre-observation and I have a component of post-observation. I can also start to think about those quality pieces of evidence that best represent my effectiveness, and those would be the things that we look inside of this tool. I'm able to upload files, I'm able to add reflections and notes, and again, I'm able to start looking at the specific standards and elements that matter to the practice that I have with students. So I can begin to add those, and you begin to see how we've got sort of those ratings associated, so I can, again, hover over the top of them and really be reflected as I'm adding those evidence and correlating those standards and elements. So I want to be able to show you, earlier I put in a piece of evidence. So I've got the attached file, I've got my reflection in there. We can see that it ties to 3.2 and it ties to 3.4. But what we don't see on here is then the piece that that the evaluator, in this case Kelly, will so from her view, as she comes into site, she can propagate and put all the teachers that she evaluates, and in this case for tonight we've added me to that equation. She's got two opportunities. She can begin to add evidence, and so when she was sitting in that meeting and wanted to be able to document that professional's performance, she could immediately pull up that add evidence and begin to sort of correlate the practices that she's saying to the standards that are being demonstrated, and effectiveness, what level of effectiveness. So I'm going to kind of drive. So,
to show the teacher or just this one?
I want you to be able to show rating piece of evidence.
Okay, so when you have this one in here, I think you put it under the first one. Oh, right here. Okay. So my teachers right now, there's going to be a feature within the tool that's going to notify me if there's evidence that needs to be rated. But right now they're sending me emails if they have things that they want me to rate in here. So I think you had 3.2. So what I would do is go in and I would edit it, and then I would and what elements that they selected. And then because so many of the people on my staff have different site rubrics, it's so easy in here because I can hover over and make sure that this one totally correlates with what their rubric is. And then I can say, looking at this evidence that we put in, the collaboration of my peers, and then I would select whether it's highly effective or effective or partially effective. I'll say partially effective.
It's probably partially effective. It's mine.
I gave you effective. And then I would click save, and then they would be able to immediately log in and see what I had rated it. And another feature that they're talking about adding is having a comment section. So if I did say that it didn't apply, I could write a little comment as to why it didn't, and then they could go back in and add another piece of evidence that would show that that was an effective method.
So we're back to my view. I refreshed, and we can see, we can already begin to see how the tool that we built will facilitate that conversation between our practitioners and those that evaluate them. I can put in the pieces of evidence that really reflect my effectiveness, and my evaluator, again, has that arbiter of my rubric to determine how I'm doing based on those standards and elements. And I get that feedback sort of more or less. And I want to be able to show you just, again, kind of a little bit of foreshadowing. So just so that you all understand the way that we roll out software, when we released the initial operating capability of the software in mid-October, we did so sort of with an awareness that once people put their hands on it and got an opportunity to use it, that they would tell us sort of where what we neglected to put in there and how we could better sort of accomplish the work that they do every day with one another, and that evaluator-evaluatee relationship. So every 2 weeks, we improve this tool. We take that feedback and we go and iterate and develop. And every 2 weeks, we release into production updates to this tool. So since we've launched it, I think we've released 2 pretty substantial upgrades to this tool. This coming Monday, we're going to release that unrated evidence piece to sort of help our evaluators know once a group of teachers have put in evidence that needs to go in and be rated. So we're kind of showing you this in a screenshot. She can quickly go in, identify the evidence that's in there, correlated to the person that uploaded it, be able to view that evidence and be able to rate that evidence sort of in one screen without having to navigate to this sort of independent area. So that kind of gives you an idea for where we're headed kind of next. So I'd like to give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions.
Thank you for previewing that. How prevalent is this out there now? Is it being piloted, or is everybody able to use it in its developmental form now? You're sharing that you use it, but can you tell me, how wide is it being used right now in the district?
Right.
Everybody gets some level of use with it, depending upon how they roll it out in their schools. I know that I can speak at my school. All my teachers have had their hand in it, and I would say probably 90% have uploaded something in it. And I've been using it for all my informal walkthroughs. And we're starting our formal observations next week after Thanksgiving. We'll be using it for that.
And what I would say is that all of our elementary and secondary principals have an awareness of the tool. And what we're working with them on right now is kind of what that looks like in terms of implementation and building capacity within their building. So again, being that district of choice, we want to give the leadership in the building the flexibility to determine how to roll it out, who ought to be training on it, whether it should be something in collaboration with. I've stood up alongside principals in several of our buildings. I've also sort of addressed big and small sort of groups to sort of build that capacity. So I wouldn't say that everybody, that there's an overall awareness of the tool yet, but I would say that all of our leaders are currently working with us to determine sort of what makes sense in their building.
I'm Andrew Slavia, I'm the development lead, and I'd like to add just to that question really quickly. Since the rollout of this tool, the site that hosts, the site SITE that hosts site CITE, has had 3,000 unique individuals logged into it. That hosts this tool and then the GBC search tool. So the majority of those are going into site, and as we know, there's about like 4,500 teachers in the district. So, sorry, I'm including evaluation. So 4,500 potential people would use this, and that's a pretty significant number in the first month. Thanks.
As with any tool that's new, there's some getting acquainted, using it, understanding how it works. And, being tuned into the community and some of the comments or the feedback I've had talking with teachers or seeing things written, many concerns with how much time I have to spend putting my evidence up there as opposed to spending my time teaching it. And is this something that there's more familiarity with the tool, it's going to, is it that simple to become more easy, or are there barriers and obstacles or feedback you're getting that you say you're updating this every couple of weeks? Are you getting that interaction that makes you improve the tool based on some of that feedback already?
Right, so I think we can both address it, so I'll yield to you. Go ahead.
Okay. My teachers asked that the first time when I said, we're not going to do anything with this, I just want to play with it and see. And then when they started uploading pieces, they have to show a body of evidence for a site, and they're finding that it's very intuitive. And I've heard nothing but great feedback from my teachers on it, and anything that's been something that they'd like to see enhanced has been addressed right away by the teachers.
And what I would add to that is, I think what our tool, and perhaps it was a little bit unintentional, but I think what our tool is driving the discussion around sort of what quality evidence looks like. And as opposed to thinking about that in terms of the quantity of evidence, let's start to think about and sort of shift that conversation to sort of quality evidence. What is the evidence that best represents my practice across several of these standards and elements? So I may have one piece of quality evidence that may link in and tie to several standards and elements. So if I have, if our tools sort of unintentionally frames that discussion, helps us to sort of shift our thinking about what does quality evidence look like and how much evidence do we really need to see to be able to determine that the work that our practitioners are doing with students is not only the best for those students, but also helps them to build capacity and grow over time. So, and we have gotten feedback largely from, because I think we've got more principals using it, than teachers at this point, just because I think they're kind of understanding the capability. But if we're being honest, I think that there's some hesitancy to put evidence in here, only because it's new, right? And so what does that really mean when I start putting evidence in here? So I think that's sort of contingent on all of us to help alleviate some of those concerns.
Okay, and my last question before I'll go to others. And I'll ask you, the principal, is this not only are we measuring the newer things that are part of CIT site, is this increasing, or is it the same as before, the number of touch points that you have interacting with your teachers that you're evaluating? So does this afford more opportunities for them to put more things in a formal memorialized way that you can evaluate, and in your faith, are you finding your interaction with the teachers on the performance increasing or more relevant or less frequent, or what would you say?
I think it's going to get much better. We're in our first month of it. I think that it's driving us to talk more about the rubric than we ever had before, which to me is great because that's what we ultimately want them to be talking about. So we're having conversations. I've offered a workshop every Monday after school with teachers that want to come, and they're bringing in pieces and having conversations with each other about is this highly effective, is this effective, and we didn't have those conversations at that level before. So yes, I think it will, but we're still in the beginning stages.
Where do you think we'll be by the end of the year? Do we have a goal, or are we just navigating through it, or we're in November now, but by May, where do you think we might be in this process?
Well, at my school, the expectation is that it's all going to be, this is how you're going to be evaluated. All your evidence needs to be housed in the inspired ed, and I think that's the direction that everybody has. But I'm not getting any pushback, at least at my site with it, because it's been kind of a smooth rollout. They knew that it was coming.
Director Richardson. A couple questions. First, just for context, just to confirm for perhaps folks in the audience who don't know the genesis of this, the rubrics were actually developed with substantial input, creative input and content input by the specialists in the relevant fields. Teachers were actually participating in defining what it means to be a highly effective teacher librarian, or the other disciplines that were listed. Is that right?
That is absolutely my understanding, yes, that work was collaborative in terms of them sort of coming together and understanding what does it look like in terms of best practices in my specific area. And I know that Dr. Cutter worked with several teachers to sort of champion that work. And so this really, again, that work sort of started last year and was part of our site evaluations that lived outside of the system last year. And what we hope to do here is to, again, to have those rubrics that were collaboratively developed be the sort of common ground between a teacher and his evaluator.
Yeah, just to add to that, last year, I think by the end of the year, we had created 20 additional site job-specific, and they were solely edited and created by those teachers in those fields. We met again this summer to, after implementing year one, to revise them. Made some small changes, but just to give you a quick story on that development, we have 6 audiologists in the district. By January, they will have 3 different versions of their evaluations because their job is so different. We have one for preschool audiologist who works in that field and works with a multidisciplinary team. We have a child find audiologist who only does testing with kids that will have a unique site evaluation for their specific job. And then we will have the other 4 audiologists who are presently working on completing their rubric language.
So a bottom-up process, not a top-down process in terms of development. The second question is really about what I think is a great feature of this, is that there really shouldn't be, assuming leaders and professionals are engaging in frequent electronic colloquies like you just demonstrated here, there really should be few surprises in terms of performance evaluation at the end of the relevant period, because you're getting kind of an as-you-go bit of feedback that's structured about, your results. Is that a fair surmise?
I would say yes, and with the rollout that Chris is talking about that's going to happen Monday. The front page is going to say how many pieces of evidence you have in each element. So it's going to be really easy for me to pull up when our mid-years are coming up after the Thanksgiving holiday to say, okay, where are we and where do we need to focus some more? So it's going to be a great snapshot. But I've never had that opportunity before.
I just wish we had something like this in my firm. I mean, to require, the requirement is essentially, the effect of the requirement is to, as you said, Principal, to kind of encourage people to have that conversation in our busyness, sometimes triaging we don't have, which is, what does it mean every day to be great in what I do? And to talk to peers and share those thoughts, and constantly have that sort of window running on the sort of intellectual desktop. That's a constant bit of software that's going on in one's cerebrum. What do I have to do to be great? Even as I'm teaching about Lincoln's Gettysburg Address in a history class. And it's thinking in those sort of longer term, having that perspective. And so what I'm hearing from you is that one of the effects of this software is it's actually encouraging people to have those hallway conversations, to have those kinds of real-time discussions, and not put them off in our busyness and forget about them.
And a side effect to that that's been really great is when folks have put stuff into InspireNet and I've rated it highly effective, we've been sharing it at staff meetings. So they're getting, and they get a little time in the spotlight to say, look at the great, and their conversations are just exponential that are happening from that. So it just is an easy way to house it. I'm excited to see what I told Chris earlier. I want to fast forward to this time next year and see how great we are with it, because I can't see that it's going to be anything but 100 times better.
Thank you.
One of the things, Steve, that I would add is that I've had an opportunity to be in front of a number of our staffs. And it's sort of fun because staff meetings generally start with celebrations, opportunity for colleagues to celebrate one another, or for a leader to celebrate the work that a particular teacher or group of teachers is doing. And it sort of occurred to me when I was getting ready to present the tool, we sort of built a tool to allow teachers to sort of own their excellence, right? And so when these teachers are celebrating one another, to me, that's what I'm hearing is that's evidence of professionalism, culture, and climate, some of those things. And so I started to see, and I sort of point that out, and people I don't think immediately go there, right? Because they're just so naturally doing their work. And so, aside from being able to tap into somebody's mind and know what's on their mind and what they're thinking and put it into the tool, which I'm not there yet. But I'm not good developers, they'll get there. So, then hopefully it just provides that opportunity for owning excellence within our ranks. Clearly, I think we've seen with our celebrations tonight that we've got some very good teachers and students in this team. So.
I just want to comment. It seems like this tool and this process has driven collaboration and cooperation inside the school. Is that the correct perception?
I think so, yes.
And it hasn't led to a competitiveness, or it hasn't led to a people pulling apart. It's actually brought them together to try and collaborate, try and discuss what works for each of them. Is that?
Yeah, and one of my teachers even said to me, is it okay if we create something together and it's the same? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, that's what we do as teachers, is we find the best and we replicate it and make it better. And a lot of them are doing this with backwards plans units together in here, and then they're replicating them in their own portfolios.
Will that collaboration be recognized as part of this? Would you?
It's a site element, yeah.
Yeah, and so it again, it's drawing people together. It's not drawing them apart. The other comment I wanted to make is just that you noted that you wanted to have a comment section, and I think that would be great, because I think that's also part of that sort of instant feedback people can get right after you see something. You evaluate it, then they know what you saw, what you were looking at, and why they got the performance rating that they did. So I think that's a worthy goal.
One thing I wanted, Chris, if you wouldn't mind, a hot topic in education these days is data, and where is it, and who owns it, and because sometimes vendors come in and they offer us software, and they basically say, well, it's free, but the reality is they want the information you're putting into it, which is another reason why we were wanting to create our own. So could you talk to the fact that this is Douglas County School District's information, we own it, it's on our servers, we protect it.
Right, so I think what Superintendent Fagan is really speaking to is, our colleagues in Jefferson County sort of went down the road with a vendor called In Bloom. And there's a lot of contention around the data that's in there and where it lives and sort of living in the cloud. And both Jeffco and now the Colorado Department of Education have sort of severed their relationship with In Bloom because it's just not quite where it needs to be in terms of comfort level with that data. So that gives certainly a unique component of our Inspired Innovation System. We've got the infrastructure in terms of hardware and sort of storage over the long haul. Because you can imagine as teachers start uploading their evidence, we need a place to store that evidence. And so we sort of, all the work that you see sort of pales in comparison to all the work that nobody ever sees. And all that data is living right here. And one of the things that has come up as I've addressed teachers and leaders in this district is sort of who owns that sort of intellectual property that lives inside of the system. And I think we're a collegial bunch of educators. And really, theoretically, our students sort of own that experience. And we work on behalf of all of them every day to deliver that best education. And so, again, as opposed to sort of having an intellectual property conversation, I think we should figure out, and we're working on ways to increase that collaboration, both in our unit builder tool, and then being able to honor that collaborative work directly in the site. So that's really the bigger vision of Inspired Innovation, is that as we sort of have those data points, if we know where a teacher is self-identifying their struggle, or a leader is self-identifying a teacher's struggle, we might be able to pair them with a specific kind of professional development. If we know what standards that teacher is trying to, what world-class outcomes and sort of objectives and skills that teacher is trying to teach in stage 1 of the backwards plan, we can sort of help to align that work as we move through assessing that work and then teaching that work. So all of this sort of, we put that data to work to try to, again, buy down that effort and streamline the process for the people that work with our kids every day.
Any other questions or comments? Well, you would think after 4 years of doing this, I would know how to run a meeting, but no one reminds me that I forgot to have the acceptance of the agenda vote. So it may be time for me to retire. So we will, I will make a motion to accept the agenda. Motion by Carson, seconded by Larson. Benevento. Carson, aye. Larson? Aye. Richardson? Aye. Silverthorne? Williams? All right. I have a few remarks I'd like to make, and then Vice President Larson has a few remarks as well. Tonight marks the conclusion of my service on the Douglas County Board of Education. On December 3rd, I'll preside over the swearing in of the new and returning board members and bid you farewell. It has been a great privilege to serve, particularly while my 3 children have attended schools in the district. I want to thank my colleagues on the board for entrusting me these last 4 years with the role of board president. As president, I've had the privilege to serve with Ryan Stewart, Cliff Stahl, Dan Gherkin, Justin Williams, Carrie Mendoza, Craig Richardson, Doug Benevento, Kevin Larson, and Megan Silverthorne. Together, we selected or supported our superintendent, Dr. Fagan, who has served alongside us as the leader of our school district. Tonight, I want to begin by thanking the principals and teachers of Douglas County. You have always been wonderful to my 3 children. Teachers are the backbone of the school district, and we have worked to support teachers, recognizing that the greatest determinant of educational achievement is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. I thank the thousands of volunteers who serve our school accountability committees, parent-teacher organizations, and tutoring and other important positions. I want to thank all the employees in the school district, from bus drivers to security personnel, from administrative assistants to maintenance staff. Some of you I have worked with more than others, and so it is for that reason that I single you out tonight for special thanks. I have to begin with Nona Eichelberg, our board secretary. Thank you for putting up with me for 4 years and making sure that the board's business moves ahead. Thank you. Dr. Christian Cutter, thank you for your dedication to elementary education and your work on the Choice Scholarship Program, a program near and dear to my heart. Dan McMenemy, thank you for your commitment to our high schools. You're the consummate professional, and you are well respected throughout our school district. Bill Moffett, you've been here the entire 8 years that I've been here, and thank you for all of your work on facilities, energy efficiency, and most recently the school marshal program. Brian Caesar, heading up HR, thank you for your groundbreaking work on teacher compensation, pay for performance, and market pay. Pat McGraw, thank you for your work with charter schools and choice programming. I particularly enjoyed attending Hope Online Learning Academy graduations with you. And welcome to Tom McMillan. We haven't had the chance to work together, but welcome as new Director of Student Parent Choice. And of course, Bonnie Betts, our CFO. Thank you for placing us increasingly in a strong financial position. When the next recession hits, folks will thank you when we don't have to lay off hundreds of teachers as we had to do previously. We now have a rainy day fund and are in a very strong financial position. Thank you to Cinnamon Watson and Randy Barber and Michelle Yee for your work in the communications department. And thank you also, Cinnamon, for your leadership as the interim director of the Douglas County Educational Foundation. Thank you, Paula Teal and Margaret Huff, for your administrative support. Thank you, Tom Price and Chris of our security operation, and Officer Glenn from the Sheriff's Department. Thank you to Brian Berner and Janet Van Zandt for the great IT support you've given me, particularly over the years, because I still don't know how to use this. And Laura Hallstrom, thank you for joining us, and welcome in your new job in the IT realm. I want to especially thank Sophie Pepin and Kiana Wynn for your service to this board on the student advisory group. And you have certainly ensured full representation from our finest high school, Thunder Ridge. Thank you to Dr. Sidda Morgan for your work to measure achievement and your work with the District Accountability Committee. Thank you, Dana Strother, Chief Academic Officer for Secondary Education, and Ted Knight, Chief Academic Officer for Elementary Education. Thank you for your commitment to ensuring a strong curriculum as we implement a world-class education. Thank you, Rob Ross, for your outstanding legal work. You're a model school district attorney. We've certainly placed a few minor items of legal work on your desk over the years. You jumped right into the middle of all we've been doing, and you flourished. I'm constantly amazed at how many different legal tasks you can juggle. And I know you have saved this district a lot of legal fees. To our superintendent, Dr. Elizabeth Fagan, it has been a great privilege to work with you. As I said recently at a Douglas County Educational Foundation luncheon, you are the Iron Lady of Douglas County. And that is exactly what we needed. The most important decision that any Board of Education makes is the selection of a superintendent, and we have not been disappointed. You and your team have led an amazing transformation of public education, And I know under your leadership, the best is yet to come. And most importantly, I want to thank my family, my wife Eileen, my children Mackenzie, Ainsley, and Liam for allowing me to spend time and be a part of this amazing school district. The one disappointment of my 8 years of service on the board is that it did not coincide with the graduation of any of my 3 children. And I did not get to hand them their diploma. Now, I do have a favorite request. My oldest child will graduate, my oldest child, Mackenzie, will graduate, along with Sophie and Kiana, this spring from Thunder Ridge High School. So I do have one request of the board, and that is I may have the privilege of handing her her diploma at the graduation ceremony in May. Do I need to make a formal resolution? 8 years ago, I joined this board after an election in which 30,000 people voted, and I was unopposed. In fact, in that November of 2005, 8 years ago, there were 5 board seats decided, one more than the normal number due to a prior board vacancy. And of the four of the 5 board seats were uncontested that year. How times have changed. This November, over 100,000 people voted for school board candidates. And I think you all know all 4 seats were vigorously contested. The recent election was intense. Both sides fought hard. I congratulate both the winners and the losers, along with their supporters. It is not easy to subject oneself to the harsh scrutiny of an election. As Teddy Roosevelt said, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. But now the election is over, and it is time for all parties to work together for the benefit of students, teachers, and parents. To those who disagree with certain programs, but wish to engage the board in this school district, you will find the hand of friendship extended. Folks will not always agree, but your voices will be heard. Earlier this evening, we recognized the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. As I reflect upon the aftermath of a hard-fought struggle here in Douglas County, which is actually a county named after Abraham Lincoln's great rival for the Senate and presidency, Stephen Douglas. I am reminded of the words of Abraham Lincoln, who taught us the importance of reconciliation and forgiveness. Near the end of the bloodiest war in American history, he closed his second inaugural address with these words: "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who has borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." Those words should be an inspiration for all of us. Today we are a school district that leads the nation in parental choice. Choice and freedom define who we are. We no longer divide ourselves between charter schools and neighborhood schools. Students are funded equally regardless of the educational choice. We've embraced choice in online learning, in homeschooling, and in the groundbreaking public-private educational partnership with Choice Scholarship Program. I believe in my heart that one day soon that program will blossom and become a model of education and innovation. There's strong support in our community for private school partnerships and options. The program is structured in a manner that protects the district from financial loss, and the quality of schools that were approved for the program is very high, demonstrating that universal choice is not only a winner for students and parents, but also enhances the overall quality of educational program and programming that the district can offer. We also embrace choice beyond our borders through Hope Online Learning Academies, a charter school that we adopted that consists of 3,000 largely economically disadvantaged students in the Denver metro area that need a second chance. At a time when many in the education establishment of this state wanted to kill that program, Douglas County saved it. I always felt proud attending those graduations in Denver, seeing those kids receive a Douglas County high school diploma and hearing their life stories of hope and second chances. We now have the most comprehensive pay-for-performance and market pay system in the country. No compensation system is perfect, and this one will continue to improve. But no teacher has had their pay cut under this program, not one. And it is vastly preferable to the old tenure-based system in which all teachers made the same amount of money, regardless of the educational results achieved. When I joined this board 8 years ago, parents regularly complained about an antiquated tenure system that required that all layoffs be seniority-based. New and talented teachers were laid off during the last recession, merely because they were the most recent hires. Fortunately, those days are gone. We have given financial and operational control of our schools to principals and moved it away from central administration through site-based budgeting. As a result, we've been able to reduce bureaucracy and foster an environment in which neighborhood schools can innovate and operate in response to the desires of parents in those schools. And the good news is, as we come out of this recession, we will have increased funding that we can allocate to those schools, allowing them to further innovate. We've embraced youth organizations such as the Boy Scouts of America and the Girl Scouts of America. Organizations that provide the traditional family and religious values that young people need as they grow up. And after recent school tragedies and the leadership of our superintendent and law enforcement throughout the country, we implemented a model school marshal program that I know improves the safety of our students. Special thanks to all of the folks in the law enforcement community in this county for making that possible. I'm very proud of all we've accomplished here together, and I'm proud of the engagement and support we have in the community. I want to thank all of you who have worked tirelessly to support the work of the superintendent and her team, as well as the board. We could not have done it without you. It would not have been possible to maintain the momentum with the scale of reform that has been undertaken if there was not strong support in this community. The truth is that there is wide belief that public education needs to shake loose the special interest groups that have shackled it for decades. If American democracy and capitalism are to shine brightly and continue as an example in the world, our students must be the best educated in the world. In my view, that means we need more choice, and yes, we need more competition. There is no reason that public education cannot benefit from market forces. The system should be accountable to the needs of students and parents. What I'm most proud of is that when we were given the opportunity to lead, we did not shrink from the task. Paraphrasing Robert Frost, 2 roads diverge in the wood, and we took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. We challenge the view that government must have a monopoly on the delivery of public education, and we replaced it with a philosophy that parents should be the primary decision makers in the education of their children. And we made it clear that although we know we are a very good school district, we're not interested in simply resting on the laurels. I've worked in public policy for many years, and one of the things that's always annoyed me is that folks in leadership often want to put off the tough decisions in order to build their capital. I believe you should spend your capital when you lose it. As Shakespeare wrote in Julius Caesar, there is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. We must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. Great men and women serve as examples of leadership for the rest of us in our daily lives. As you all know, I have to put this in. As you all know, one of my heroes is Ronald Reagan. In my own special way, I feel like, much like he must have felt being with his presidency, very happy and very satisfied. In his farewell address, he spoke of the shining city upon a hill, which was the reference he used for America throughout his political career. As he said in his farewell, "My friends, we did it. We weren't just marking time. We made a difference. We made the city stronger. We made the city freer. And we left her in good hands." All in all, not bad. Not bad at all. Thank you all, and Godspeed in the important work. Vice President Larson.
Well stated, Mr. President. And I think I can confidently state on behalf of the board and leadership that we will certainly keep a seat open for you at any of your children's commencement exercises in your term. As John mentioned a little while ago, we just had an election in which 100,000 people in this community participated. That's nearly double the previous high water mark that was set just a couple of years ago, and it shows that this county is extremely engaged in the affairs of its school district. I know that many wanted a different outcome. It was a close and passionate race, and I respect and understand that many people wanted to see a different direction. The outcome of this election, though, does affirm the leadership and vision that we have in place for Douglas County School District. But as we move ahead and do these things, it's important to remember that it's not just what we're trying to do as a district, but how we do it that matters. We'll have some more details when our new members are sworn in a couple of weeks, and we'll have a chance to come to some agreement on some ideas that have already been percolating. But I think with some creativity and some determination, I think there's some things that we can do that will apply to the how as much as the what that matters ahead. And one thing that I really think that I've got a vision for us is to find ways to get the board into the community even more. I think we can look at ways that we can have our meetings elsewhere than this Wilcox building, but in a meaningful way. I don't want to just have a remote board meeting in a different venue, but actually have a different setting and a context where we can have some meaningful interaction, true interaction, listen and respond to questions, and do so in a polite and civil manner. I also think that when we are here at Wilcox, it's incumbent on us to find ways to bring more of the community into the boardroom. And while I think we've got some work to do exploring the logistics of this, I think we've got a rather vigorous bullpen over there already. I think there's been enterprising individuals doing this on their own, but I think as a district we should look at ways that we can make the transmission of our meetings more accessible to people, whether it's through audio or video, let's figure that out. I'm not going to prescribe or propose that at this time, but I would like us to look with a genuine goal of trying to find a way to bring the community into these rooms as necessary. And then I would also call upon all of us on the board to find increasing ways to attend and interact with schools in the area of our representation. And I think there are many ways that this can be done. There are, of course, SAC meetings, there's chances to meet with staff at their schools, arrange with the principal to get a tour of the building. But there's also PTO meetings, there's concerts, there's plays, there's sporting events, there's many ways that we can engage. And I know that between now and the end of May, I want to renew my acquaintance with many of the schools I visited and especially focus on the area of the county that I represent. So, that is as much detail as I'll lay out right now, because with all due respect to the rest of our colleagues, I think we need to have this conversation, and I think you can look forward to some more updates on this. But I look forward to continued work and conversations with our principals, our teachers, our parents, our students, and our community at large. Stay tuned for how we can make this connection stronger, extending the hand of friendship, a listening ear, and an open mind for the benefit of all the students of our Douglas County School District. Thank you.
Board, committee, and liaison reports. Any reports? I'll just mention that 2 weeks from tonight, December 3rd, the results of the election will be certified and we will swear in. Actually, I think the results of the election will be probably certified in the next few days. But we will swear in the returning and newly elected board members at the December 3rd meeting. And that will be preceded by a reception with various elected officials in Douglas County, and family, and former board members as well. We're going to renew a tradition of gathering former board members together once a year and give them an opportunity to engage with the board. Any other reports? Yes, sir. Director Williams.
I could report back to the board in regards to the Douglas County Youth Initiative. Marcia Alston was hired, I guess, about 2 years ago. When she came on, there were 6 facilitators, and the family loads that they had, they were serving. They acted as facilitators to help struggling families to get appropriate resources to deal with mental health problems, with suicidal risks, with drug issues, and some other things. And through her leadership, she has rearranged and streamlined the process, so there are 2 facilitators now doing more workload than our previous director, who had 6 facilitators. She's doing an outstanding job, and if any of you guys ever get a chance to bump into her or shake her hand, she has served our board and our interests very well. I'm very proud of her.
All right, now we'll, any other? Director Silverton?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Pat McGraw, who attended both the SAG meeting, Student Advisory Group, and the DAC meeting to talk about possibly the most controversial item that we'll ever discuss, which is school calendars. Yes, he made a very effective presentation to both groups, of course, the different focus, and he got some great ideas from the students, and he also had a good discussion with the DAC. So that item appears on our consent agenda tonight.
All right, now we'll move to public comment and ask folks to speak for 2 minutes. And we'll begin with Gary Collins, Parker.
Well, Mr. Carson, I'd like to say goodbye. This will be the last board meeting. And I do like the story you had to tell on your perspective of the past few years. I'd like to start my comment by saying all members of the Douglas County community are invited to a public meeting of the Community Accountability Committee, we call that the CAC, for Douglas County. That's going to be Thursday, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Philip S. Miller Library in Castle Rock. I also want to say that the mission of the Community Accountability Committee is to effectively engage the Board of Education on education issues within the county, collaborating to ensure that the interests of the community are being met. So the question would be, is why a Community Accountability Committee? Well, I have a few notes here that will be passed to you, but one addresses this issue about the election. It's pretty concerning to a significant portion, probably close to 50% of our community, that once again, so many people who do not live within Douglas County can have a stronger influence on our lives and the education of our kids than the parents, teachers, and the community of Douglas County. Now, also, in spite of what I heard tonight, my experience has been school board members have not demonstrated the ability to interact in an open and collaborative manner with parents, teachers, and the community. And those are the members that have valid and verified concerns about the direction the school district is going. Now, Kevin Larson, I appreciate what he said in a recent article, and tonight as well, said he hopes to meet to help mend the rift in the community that was created during the recent election. I would state that the rift started in 2009, okay, when this stuff all began. My last comment would be, excuse me, we as a community welcome Mr. Larson, as well as all the board members and central administration in uniting this community, not just the rhetoric, but the actual collaboration. So thank you very much.
From Littleton.
My name is Patty Bagalis-Hickey, and I am a former Littleton Public School teacher, and my father Mike served on the Littleton School Board as president for approximately 12 years. I lived in Douglas County for the past 15 years, and I have two children that are attending their neighborhood school for the past 7. We have just emerged from a very heated and contentious election. A primary theme in this campaign was the desire for the parents and teachers to gain a voice in their direction for their child's education. We had hoped to achieve that goal through our candidates. Now we hope that the current board will allow, at least for the next few meetings, more ample time, bless you, for questions and comments from the public. This can be an opportunity for us to find the common ground, a bottom line goal that everyone in this room can agree. We are all here to support our children's education in the best way possible. I believe that we can agree on that. I believe we need to create unity in this district with open communication, collaboration, integrity, and true transparency with respect for all parents, teachers, and students. Without that respect, we all lose. Mr. Larson, you were quoted in the November 11th issue of our Colorado News. I hope to mend the rift in this community. I'm going to offer everything I can as a leader to get this community together and make education deliver what we need for these kids. Mr. Benevento, you were quoted in the November 7th issue of the Denver Post. The district needs to do a better job of listening to those who may not support the current board's position on certain issues. I look forward to working with the district leadership and community members representing a variety of opinions in an open setting. And thank you for allowing me to speak. speak tonight.
Old and dear friend, Mr. Gary Steuben from Platte River Academy.
I need some help from the group, somewhere between the coffee and the Gettysburg Address and finding my seat up here. I lost a card, a greeting card in an envelope, generically addressed to John. It does not have money in it. Okay. Or a gift card.
I appreciate that. Good evening to those who have had the fortune of not knowing who I am before tonight. I'm Gary Steuben, principal at Platte River Academy. To the members of the Board of Education, Dr. Fagan, the superintendent's leadership, and all others, good evening as well. I've come forward to express a sincere appreciation for the voice that John Carson has brought to the Board of Education in support of charter schools during his 8 years of service. John, during your first term, you were often a single supportive voice when it came to discussions and decisions regarding charter schools and the Douglas County children they educate. In many ways, you've become our champion as you guided and worked with the school district leadership to better share revenues and resources to support a more open system of purchase services and to implement a fair process of approving new charter school applications. From the hearts and classrooms of thousands of Douglas County children, parents, and faculty and staff who call a charter school their home away from home, we all say thank you. Why can I stand here and share what has been said or stated in the hearts of so many? Earlier today, I asked my charter colleagues for their permission to address the board this evening as a spokesperson for the communities, the students, and the schools that each of them lead and serve every day. To summarize their responses, of course you have my permission. While many charter parents and most students may not directly know who you are, they have all certainly benefited from your service and leadership on this board. Again, thank you. Your voice and support over the years has brought a sense of fairness and equity in the district's relationship and business with its charter schools as partners. It is a standard that has been set for the current and new members of the board. It is one that I expect will continue. This is the last time that I will get to address the board with you as president. So to you, I give a sincere hoorah and a heartfelt Semper Fi as a professional and a fellow Marine. Fair winds and calm seas, John, wherever the many tomorrows ahead may take you. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have John Carroll from Highlands Range.
I'd like to make a first comment, stroke question. I found the process where I was interviewed by a board representative prior to my request to address the board being accepted somewhat unusual, and just wondering if it's standard procedure. I mean, it's clearly an attempt to screen people out, get rid of those that might present obnoxious views apparently. All right, my second point.
That's not correct. Everybody is free to speak here, sir, including
Why was I
yourself,
screened
so
then?
Nobody is screened. Everybody who signs up is speak.
Is interviewed?
What's that?
Everybody that wants to speak is interviewed, is that correct? By a board representative?
No.
No, well, I was. That's why I was just wondering if that was standard procedure.
It is not.
Okay.
Please proceed with your presentation.
All right. On vouchers, that's or I believe it's called the Choice Scholarship Program. I think that's a highly expensive luxury, really, that benefits people that don't really need the money. The cost to the taxpayer is roughly, by my calculation, $10,000 per annum. This is based on roughly $4,500 in the Choice Fund and $6,000 lost by the pupil migrating out to a private school. My second point, is that the people that take advantage of this don't really need it. The cost to send a child to Valedictorian, for example, is $15,400 a year. Adding on fees, you're probably pretty close to $20,000 a year. The board gives them a check for roughly $5,000. They still have to come up with $15,000. If you can afford $15,000 to send your child to school, you can afford $20,000. That concludes my thoughts. Thank you.
Kristen Lees from Castlerock is next.
Good evening. Most of you probably don't know who I am, but my name is Kristen Blease, and I have been a Spanish teacher here. I've been a Spanish teacher for 18 years, 8 of those years at Castleview High School. Mr. McManity, you may remember me as you once offered me a job at Rock Canyon. I'm here today to personally tell you that I will be leaving Douglas County at the end of the school year as a result of the election and the direction that this administration and school board are taking the district. I'm not afraid of change or reform and think that both are inevitable and necessary. However, the way you have been and are pursuing this is something I do not believe in and cannot support, and for that reason, I will be leaving. I will be leaving the school with administrators, colleagues, and students that I love. I'm not leaving because of them. I'm leaving because of you. I have heard you say that teachers who are leaving are afraid of accountability and or are ineffective teachers. I, as most of the other teachers who have left and will be leaving, are neither. Tonight, I wanted to share with you what I've accomplished as a Spanish teacher in the last 4 years while you have torn apart our district. Then you tell me, is this the kind of teacher you want to lose? I've created and taught a new 21st century course for Douglas County Schools called Spanish for Leadership. I have taught the Spanish 3 course in conjunction with ACC so my students can receive college credit while in high school. I have led the restructuring of the Spanish curriculum using backward design and performance-based assessments to align with the AP exams. I have given students the opportunity to travel and do volunteer work abroad. I have organized exchange students to come to our school from Spain. I have hosted exchange teachers from other countries in my home. I have been nominated a DC Apple Teacher. I was the World Language Coordinator for the district. I have organized professional development opportunities for world language teachers because the district wasn't. I was recognized with the Excellence in Teaching Award for World Language Teachers in Colorado. I was elected president of the Colorado Congress of Foreign Language Teachers by my colleagues throughout the state to represent them locally and nationally. I have earned my second master's degree. I've attended and presented at world language conferences throughout the country. I've represented the district and the United States as a Fulbright teacher in Uruguay. And I was rated highly effective by your site system. Now I'll be leaving and taking my talents and passions to a different school. Thank you.
Barbara Brennenstall from Highlands Ranch.
Mr. Benevento, you were quoted in the Denver Post as saying the election signaled the district need to do a better job of listening to those who may not support the current board's position on issues. I am one of those people. This past election was about more than the union or the vouchers. I feel it was about the teachers, kids, and parents. Teachers who don't feel appreciated, kids who aren't getting the best of what our county can offer, and parents who feel the board doesn't listen to them. If the teachers don't feel appreciated, they'll leave the district. That means my kids will be taught by teachers with less experience and less knowledge. If this practice continues, there is no way that Douglas County will maintain the status of it as a great school district. New teachers will come in, get their experience, and leave, knowing that this district does not value them. Kids in our county aren't getting the full value from our school district. We aren't using all of the available funds to help educate our kids. I understand the need for the rainy day fund, but it's pouring right now. My school alone fundraises over $100,000 to meet the needs for our children. We shouldn't have to do that. As a parent, I personally have spoken at board meetings in the past and feel that board members listen, but don't hear, don't understand what I'm saying.
I don't see the collaboration with the public. A lot of the board meeting time takes place behind closed doors. As part of the public, I feel we have the right to hear what is being discussed during the entire board meeting. How can we know what arguments were made for the issues being voted on? All of that takes place behind closed doors. You make your decisions and then come out here and vote. There's rarely any discussion as to how you reached your decisions. How can we be informed if we only get half of the information? I hope going forward that you will take what I have said to heart and find ways to collaborate with the public during board meetings, make teachers feel better valued, and help kids in the school district achieve their goals. Thanks.
Our final public comment tonight is from Francine Thompson from
Hi, good evening. What I wanted to do tonight was to thank our outgoing members, and I'm going to read what I wrote even though Dr. Carrie Mendoza is not here. Good evening. I want to take this opportunity to address our two outgoing board members. First, Carrie Mendoza. I'd like to thank you for stepping up to serve on our school board, even if it was just for a short time. It was really great to listen to you, to ask your questions about whether how something would affect the charter schools. I wish you much future success and hope you will stay involved in our district at whatever level works for you and your family. Now to John Carson. I want to thank you for your service on the board for the past 8 years. The first 4 as a lone voice for what was right. For example, wanting to include charters in the 2008 bond bill election, or one that some folks may not be aware of, the lone vote to not allow our high schools to have open campuses. One of the first things you did, as the new board did under your leadership, was to put charter schools on the path to receiving a full share of the levy override dollars. Beginning with your presidency in 2009, you set our district under your continued leadership. The district went on to implement reforms that are in the best interest of our kids, teachers, and taxpayers. You said no to the union and yes to our kids. What has remained steadfast in all of your 8 years of service is your commitment to making decisions that are first and foremost in the best interest of our kids. I wish you nothing but success in your future endeavors. And I say that as a parent who is very happy with our district and the direction that it is headed in. Thank you.
Mr. President, may I go ahead and make my comment?
What's that?
May I go ahead and make my comment? I wasn't going to, but.
You want to say something?
I'd like to go ahead. I was on the.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Kristen Patterson. I'm a parent who supported your opponents in the school board election, and I want to be clear that I'm not a union operative or a union lackey, and I did not dive into supporting your opponents because I think they will bring back a collective bargaining agreement to Douglas County. Things certainly peaked this spring when we parents spoke up for the teachers because we saw the injustice in rolling out an incomplete evaluation system. Parents have done lots of fact-checking because the arguments that you make for being proud to have ended the union relationship don't add up. Your supporters would say, good for them, when hearing that experienced, highly effective teachers were leaving our district because of the lack of respect shown to them, and that they were able to receive significant pay increases by leaving the DCSD. But is that really good for our kids? I don't think so. I supported your opponents because I want parents to have a voice and to be respected. I do love and respect teachers, and I know that if they are not treated well, and if our class sizes are not better controlled, they will not be able to effectively give my children the growth I expect of them or that they deserve. Please don't assume that means I have a protracted case of teacher's pet syndrome. Loving and standing up for teachers is not the same thing as loving and standing up for the union. I want to be very clear about that. Funding, we have not, I believe we've been very clear parents about others of our concerns that have nothing to do with the teachers union. funding that needs to make it into our classrooms responsibly, lack of transparency and trust, lack of parent community input, misallocation of taxpayer dollars, building up all of our schools rather than driving them to compete. These are the reasons I am concerned about your priorities. I think the overwhelming push for schools to compete against each other and the availability of funds to support this is the wrong way to go when I believe we need to restore fundamentals that have been cut like art and instrumental music. I do look forward to trying to work together to ensure responsible decision-making for our school district moving forward into our children's future. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do hope you will stay involved. There are many avenues for any folks who want to give their input and participate, and I think you will find the members of this board very interested in engaging with you, and I also think that you'll find at least some of the information that's circulated out there is not quite true. So we look forward to working with you all in the years ahead, and I will be joining you out there in the community and supporting our school board and our school district. So now we have the consent agenda. We will move to a vote on the consent agenda. There's a number of items on there. We have some district accountability committee memberships. Does anyone liaison want to mention anything about our new members?
Yeah, without pulling anything off the consent, just two remarks. One on the DAC interviewed and voted and recommended two gentlemen to join the committee. And having been part of the interview process, I can attest that it was a thoughtful process. And so we would recommend that we keep them on the consent agenda and have them join the committee. The other one is the remark on the calendars. The calendars available for schools to choose were submitted and discussed. And I just want to pass along one remark, just for the record, and for any principals who still might be in attendance, that there was considerable feedback from parents that no matter which one of the calendars is chosen, there's a strong desire for the schools that feed through an area to have some consistencies. I know that many of our feeders do have that consistency, some do not, and I would pass along that comment from parents to look into every effort that could be made to making your schools aligned for the convenience and the benefit of those families.
Are there any other comments? And I will just note that the calendars and the scheduling issues, as with many other issues on budget and personnel and programming, are now provided to the schools and their communities to decide for themselves what's best for their constituency. So these are the options, and so the board will be approving them for consideration going forward. Any other discussion?
I'll move that we adopt the consent agenda.
Motion by Larson, seconded by Benevento.
Aye.
Carson, aye. Larson?
Aye.
Richardson? Silvercliff? Williams? All right, we are good to go on that, and the last item is approval of a meeting in executive session, and let me get to so I'll make a motion to convene an executive session to discuss legal issues, to hold conference with the board's attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions pursuant to CRS 24-6 4-6-4024B, specifically legal requirements for homeschooled students to participate in extracurricular activities. And second, negotiations pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024C, specifically superintendent's contract extension. Is there a second? Motion by Carson, second by Benevento. Benevento. Aye. Carson, aye. Larson. Aye. Mendoza. Excuse me. Richardson. Silverthorne. Williams. Aye. All right. Well, that will conclude our regular meeting this evening.